Okay, well, I think I'm going to get started. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening for this online workshop for homeowners with on-site sewage systems. I'd like to start by respectfully acknowledging that the land on which we gather to host this virtual meeting is the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. My name is Vince Van Tongeren, environmental analyst with Comox Valley Regional District. I'll be leading the presentation tonight. Also with us, we have Nancy Clements, drinking water, land use, and healthy built environment consultant for Island Health. She's been working within the on-site wastewater field for Island Health for many years. And we also have Ian Ralston, an on-site wastewater treatment expert based on the Gulf Islands and one of the authors of the BC Sewage System Standard Practice Manual. This workshop, we've got about an hour and a half total. This presentation will take about an hour, and then after that, we'll have 30 minutes available for questions and answers. However, feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box at any time, and if I can, we'll answer the questions during the presentation, or we'll just answer them in order at the end of the presentation. I'll also be running a couple of small polls during the presentation. The input on these does provide us with some great feedback, which we can use to continuously improve this septic education program. There is also a septic information kit available on our website at comoxvalleyrd.ca/septic. This includes 4 septic fact sheets, as well as a maintenance record that you can use to track maintenance activities on your system. For those that would like a hard copy of these, we do have them available at the front desk of our main office on Harmston Avenue in downtown Courtenay. For some regional context, there is about 9,000 septic systems in the electoral areas of the Comox Valley Regional District. The regional district started this septic education program with in-person workshops in the fall of 2018. We also had some in-person workshops in spring and fall of 2019, and today's workshop is the first time we've taken this online. So we're going to see how this goes and make any necessary adjustments for next year's program. So to start, I'd like everybody to think about what they think makes septic system maintenance important. And while you're thinking about this, I'm also going to put up a bit of a poll here with a few questions. Let's get this happening. There, so if you can answer those poll questions, that should be up on your screen. And these are completely anonymous, so yeah, feel free to chime in. And yeah, first question is, do you know where your septic system is? The next question is, do you know what type of septic system you have? Question number 3, just asking when you last had your septic system pumped out. And the 4th question is just asking how old is your septic system. So while everybody is answering those questions, I'll talk about a couple things that make septic system maintenance important. One of the first things is you want to keep your family and your neighbors healthy. A failing septic system can release untreated wastewater into your yard or contaminate groundwater, and this creates a health risk for your family and your neighbors. You also want to help protect the environment. A failing septic system can release untreated wastewater, and this can pollute creeks, lakes, shorelines, and drinking water. A properly maintained septic system will help protect your property values, as an unusable septic system or one in disrepair will lower your property value and possibly make it more challenging to sell your property. And maintaining your septic system will prolong the life of your system and help save you money in the long run, as replacement of a failed septic system can be costly. Okay, looks like we've got some good answers to the poll. So yeah, most of you know where your septic system is. That's great. A lot of you don't know what type of system you have. So hopefully by the end of this workshop, you'll have a better idea of what type of system you have. Yeah, a lot of you have maintained your septic systems fairly recently. And lastly, yeah, many of you, yeah, most of your systems are less than 30 years of age. Yeah, the poll should have been on the screen, scenery. Yeah, so it looks like most people have answered. Yeah, like I said, this is our first time running this, so yeah, so just bear with us here. I am going to end the poll, and I believe that will put the results up on the screen for you to see, and then we'll yeah, here, share results. We'll just share those for a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so I'll close out the polling here. And let's move on to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about the rules of the various government agencies around septic system. Starting with the province, the Ministry of Health is responsible for the Health Act and the sewage system regulations for on-site systems. The sewage system regulation defines who can work on septic systems. These are authorized persons, and the Ministry of Health provides guidance to authorized persons through the Standard Practice Manual. Island Health, formerly the Vancouver Island Health Authority, maintains records for plans and specifications for systems that have been installed. The authorized person you hire to install your system is responsible for filing this information with Island Health. Island Health's role is also to ensure that all buildings with indoor plumbing have a sewage system that is in compliance with the sewage system regulation. And Island Health also has the authority to inspect and take corrective action to alleviate health hazards related to existing on-site wastewater systems. In regards to the Comox Valley Regional District, one of the first things we do is we treat septage that's collected by the various septic haulers. This is taken to the Comox Valley Water Pollution Control Center, where it's treated with the rest of the wastewater from Comox and Courtney. And at the end of the process, these biosolids are brought to the compost facility and turned into a nutrient-rich compost that can be used for landscaping, orchards, flower gardens, and lawns. And as mentioned, the regional district has launched this education program to help provide information to homeowners on proper care and maintenance of their septic systems. I should note that many of the resources we're using have been adapted by education programs in place in other regional districts, such as the Regional District of Nanaimo and the Capital Regional District, and we're definitely appreciative of their support. I'll also mention that the CVRD has recently investigated options for mandatory maintenance program options, but at this time, the regional district does not regulate sewage systems. That said, future regulatory program implementation is a possibility. For context, there is one regional district in BC with a septic regulatory program, and that's the Capital Regional District. And next, we'll talk a bit about authorized persons. They're defined under the sewage system regulation as either registered on-site wastewater practitioners, or ROPs, or professionals. So under the regulation, registered on-site wastewater practitioners can design and install type 1 and 2 systems that with the design flow of under 9,100 liters per day, or they can install type 3 systems under supervision. Your professionals, they can design type 1, 2, and 3 systems. They can also design custom systems with smaller setbacks. They could also design systems for commercial enterprises, and professionals can also be called upon to supervise type 3 installs. Now now let's talk a bit about homeowner legal responsibilities. The provincial sewage system regulation does state that the property owner must ensure that an on-site sewage system, a septic system, is constructed and maintained so that it does not cause a health hazard. Okay, this slide covers the remaining topics in the workshop. First, we'll talk about the types of septic systems and their components. Next, we'll talk about care and maintenance of septic systems. Following that, we'll talk a bit about how to detect a failing system and what to do if you find one. We'll talk more about authorized persons, and then at the very end, we'll have some time for questions and answers. So let's start with the basics, understanding your septic system. First type is type 1 septic system. This is your typical septic tank treatment system. These are the most common type in the CVRD electoral areas. The conventional system, this consists of two main parts, a septic tank, which is your treatment component, and a soil filter called a drain field. This is your dispersal area. It can also be called a leaching bed, an absorption field, or a tile field. There can be many different styles, dimensions, and plans for septic systems, taking into consideration factors such as soil type, topography, and drainage. Here's a little bit more about what's inside a septic tank. Depending on the age of the tank, there might be one or two compartments. The purpose of the septic tank is to separate liquids from the solids and to start to break down the organic material in wastewater. So as the wastewater comes out of the house and into the septic tank, its velocity slows down and the heavier materials settle down into the bottom of the tank, and this is called the sludge layer, and the lighter materials will float up to the top and form what's called the scum layer. Anaerobic bacteria present in wastewater will start to break down the materials in the sludge layer, but don't break it down completely, and this is why septic tanks have to be pumped out over time. In a two-chamber tank, you have a baffle here, and this directs flow out of this primary chamber here, and also helps to prevent solids from getting out the outlet T and out into your drain field. Now the next types of systems, these are your type 2 and type 3 systems, also known as package treatment plants. These provide a higher level of treatment to produce better water quality, and they achieve this through aerobic treatment technology where air is pumped into the system. A type 2 treatment plant will produce an effluent with a consistent quality of less than 45 milligrams per liter of total suspended solids, or TSS, and with a 5-day biochemical oxygen demand, or BOD, of less than 45 milligrams per liter. A type 2 system is typically used where site conditions make it impossible to install a conventional septic system. This could include things such as a high groundwater table, bedrock, poor soil conditions, or a smaller property where you don't have the ability to meet setback distances from surface water wells or property boundary lines. The treated effluent from a type 2 system can typically be discharged into a smaller area than that required for treatment by a conventional drain field. Type 3 is similar, although the type 3 produces even better quality effluent containing less than 10 milligrams per liter of TSS and 10 milligrams per liter of BOD. Effluent from a type 3 system will typically be clear, and a type 3 system is typically only used in the toughest site conditions where you have a sensitive receiving environment or a high water table that would make a type 1 or type 2 system impossible to install. Now, a type 3 system will often include the same treatment processes as a type 2, but might be followed by some type of fabric or sand filter, and also some form of disinfection such as UV. Next, this illustrates risers. You could see them sitting on the top of that previous slide of the septic tank. These are installed to make maintenance of your septic tank and other components of your system a lot easier. If you've got risers on your tank, next time it needs to be inspected, it doesn't have to be dug out. And these riser lids are also visual cues of where your septic system components are. within your yard. Next thing to consider is an effluent filter. Effluent filters can help maximize the life of your system by providing another barrier for solids that didn't settle out in your septic tank and filter them out before they get out into your drain field where they could cause problems. Effluent filters do have to be maintained, but it is a better option than having solids getting out into your drain field and causing issues. Next is the distribution box. This can be considered the heart of your gravity-fed system. In the distribution box, the effluent comes into the distribution box from the left, shown on the graphic. And then the purpose of the distribution box is to ensure that the effluent, equal amounts of the effluent travel to all the different runs within your septic field. And this diagram here shows speed levelers, and these make it easy to level out the effluent level within the distribution box and thus facilitate an equal amount of effluent getting out into all the runs of the drain field. This is important because you don't want all of the effluent going out into one run and overloading the soil in that part of your drain field. Okay, this slide shows how a typical drain field would look while it's under construction. Drain field typically consists of 3 to 6 trenches, 18 to 24 inches deep. The perforated pipe laid in gravel, covered by soil. And then, underneath the soil is what performs the final wastewater polishing before the wastewater gets down to the barrier layer, whether that be the groundwater table or bedrock. So the performance objective for effluent before it reaches the barrier layer is for it to meet recreational water quality guidelines or better. So this is important because the effluent may not be fully treated once it reaches the water table and could still contain pathogens. And that's why there's also setback distances to wells and breakout points and water bodies that are very important. And these setback distances are a final step in protecting public health. Okay, this next slide shows an example of where a gravity distribution system may not be feasible. Pressure distribution can be used, and this system would uses a pump to deliver doses of wastewater under pressure out to the laterals of the distribution system. So the system consists of smaller 1 to 2 inch diameter laterals, and these will have small discharge orifices in them. And the pressure from the pump is what pushes the wastewater out of the laterals and into the soil for final polishing. This shows another example of a type of drain field. These are infiltrators where the effluent from the laterals will be sprayed upwards to the infiltrators and then trickle back down into the soil below. This all gets buried underground, the same as a conventional trench drain field. In the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about composting toilets. These can be an effective option where perhaps water supply is constrained. Composting toilets are also regulated under the BC Sewage System Regulation, and they require authorized person design, construction, and a maintenance plan. And authorized professionals can use the BC Manual of Composting Toilet and Greywater Practice to guide the design and install of a composting toilet system. Some pros and cons of composting toilets. As said, they conserve water. So in areas where water supply is constrained, they can help reduce indoor water use. This also results in less sewage effluent flowing out into a wastewater system and into the environment. This can make composting toilets an alternative option where there are constraints that limit the use of a conventional septic system. This can also reduce stress on an older septic system and keep it operating for maybe a bit longer than if the conventional toilets were being used. There's also the potential for beneficial reuse of the compost from the composting toilet, it's termed residual organic matter, or ROM. In terms of some of the considerations on composting toilets, they can be more expensive. There can be odor or insect issues if they're not properly managed. They do require an electrical supply to add some extra heat or ventilation for the composting process. The composting process can be challenging to manage, and as can management of the residual organic matter. And it's also important to note with a composting toilet system that a sewage system is still required for all the gray water that will be coming out of the home. Okay, let's talk a bit about septic system care. So the first step is locating your system, and judging by the poll, it looks like most of you knew where your system is, so that's good. The next is to create a simple sketch of your system. The maintenance record that we provided on our website has an area on the back where you can draw a diagram of your septic system and include some measurements to a corner of your house or some other landmarks in your property, so it's easy to locate it in the future. If you are unsure where your system is located, you might be able to obtain a copy of your paperwork from Island Health. There could be a construction permit on file if your system was built between 1968 to 2005, or a sewage system filing should be on file if the system was built after 2005. Another thing to consider when looking after your system is your system big enough? I think what this slide illustrates is if the use of your household or property changes, for instance, you're adding basement suite or an Airbnb suite or something like that, or you're having more family members move into your home, it might be important to assess the capacity of your septic system to ensure that it can handle the change in use of your property. And now let's talk a bit about taking care of your drain field. It is important that your drain field has good ventilation and adequate sunlight. There needs to be oxygen needs to get into the soil to aid the bacteria that are responsible for digesting the wastewater as it passes into the soil. So what this means is do not build or construct anything over your drain field, including parking areas, patios, above ground swimming pools, decks, or any other structures. You don't want to park or drive vehicles over your drain field. This can crush your distribution pipes, and it can also compact the soil. And this can reduce the life of your system. You don't want to plant trees or shrubs too near your drain field. The roots can travel quite some distance in search of water, and they can potentially plug and damage your distribution pipes. And you don't want to irrigate any vegetation that's on your drain field. Any additional water can interfere with the ability of the soil under your drain field to absorb and treat the wastewater. Some things to do, if you're doing any landscaping in your yard, you want to mark off where your septic system components are so you don't damage your system while you're doing your landscaping project. You want to plant grass over your drain field. Grass is the ideal ground cover for drain fields. It helps hold the soil in place. And it has shallow roots. You'll want to divert any roof drains or driveway slot drains or any other surface water drainage away from your drain field. As said, you want to introduce as little water onto the drain field area as possible, because there's already a lot of water coming from your home, and the soil needs that capacity to treat that wastewater. So it's maintaining your drain field is easy to do. It just needs to be left alone to work efficiently. So a drain field on a conventional system should last at least 25 or 30 years. But as mentioned, the distribution pipes can get clogged by roots or solid materials out of your septic tank. So they may have to be repaired or replaced. Another consideration is water conservation. This is a key element to keeping your septic system healthy. Too much water use, this can flush solids into your drain field. It can also saturate the soil. This can affect the drainage of your drain field and the bacterial action of the bacteria that are treating the wastewater. So yeah, minimizing water use helps keeps the solids settled on the bottom of your septic tank and improves the efficiency of your system. You don't want to overload your system, and this can cause premature malfunction of your system. Yeah, overloading it can take the form of doing too many laundry loads over the course of a day. It's a good idea to spread your laundry loads out over the day or over the week. Conserving water is particularly important if you have an older septic system. Older systems were designed when people used less water. This means that if your system is older, it might be under capacity compared to today's standards. There is more information on water conservation in one of the septic fact sheets that's available on our website and available as part of the participant package. In terms of what can go down the toilet, the 3 P's are what's important to remember. Pee, poo, toilet paper, and nothing else. With the exception of toilet paper, if you haven't eaten it first, don't flush it. You don't want to use your toilet like a garbage can and flush down things like dental floss, facial tissues, garbage, grease, chemicals, or other solids. These can get into your drain field and cause issues. In terms of septic additives, they're not recommended or necessary. Your septic tank, the material coming into your septic tank already contains all the microbes it needs for the breakdown of pollutants within wastewater. Yeah, for this reason, these additives aren't necessary. We like to throw this chicken picture up there because there's an adage out there: you throw a dead chicken in your septic tank to inoculate it with the bacteria, but it's maybe a better idea to eat it first. Okay, in regards to medications, you don't want to flush medications down the toilet. You want to return them using the medications return program provided by the Health Products Stewardship Association. For more information, you can go to their website, healthsteward.ca. Most pharmacies in BC are part of this program, and for residents of Denman Island, I believe your nearest options are going to be in Courtenay or Comox. Most pharmacies in the area are part of the program, and this program is free to participate in. In terms of kitchen tips, you want to scrape plates into your garbage or compost if that's an option. You don't want to send too many food scraps down the drain. It's a good idea to use liquid laundry detergents and liquid dish detergents. Some powder detergents can get out into the drain field and potentially clog pipes in the drain field. And you want to avoid the use of carburetors. Carburetors will add a significant amount of solids into your drain field. This will increase the frequency of required inspections. The standard practice manual also says that where a carburetor is used, an increase of 50% in daily design flow is needed to accommodate the use of a carburetor. And an increase of 50% is going to result in a bigger system, and a bigger system is going to be more expensive. So it's probably best to avoid the use of carburetors. You also want to use greener cleaners where you can, as some chemical cleaning products can be harmful to your septic system. As mentioned, the soils in the drain field contain microorganisms. These are also sensitive to harmful chemicals. In order to keep your system healthy and protect the environment, it's important to watch what goes down the drain. I've got some numbers here about talking about what it takes in terms of introducing various substances for a septic tank die-off. So in a 1,000 gallon tank, if 7 liters or more of bleach is added, that can cause issues. 19 liters or more of Lysol can cause issues. Or this one is interesting, 11.3 grams of Drano. That's less than a tablespoon. So yeah, key message there is Drano is not a good thing to use if you have a septic system. So it's important to note, all systems require maintenance. You want to maintain your system to prolong its lifespan. Depending on the makeup of your system, this could involve cleaning your effluent filter, checking pumps, alarms, electrical components, pumping out your septic tank, checking for leaks, checking the alignment of your distribution box to ensure that that the effluent is flowing equally to all the runs in your drain field, and also flushing the pipes in your drain field. The record sheet included in the package is useful for keeping track of the maintenance on your system. In regards to costs of maintenance, these are relatively recent industry costs for Vancouver Island. It's important to note that everyone does have to pay for maintenance. Those of us who live within a municipality that are hooked up to a sewer, through property taxes, we pay the municipality to maintain the sewer system and to treat the wastewater. So it's, yeah, by the same rationale, those that are connected to a septic tank have responsibility to look after the septic system to ensure that the wastewater is being properly treated. So these costs of maintenance, up to $600 for a tank pump out, up to $800 for annual maintenance and monitoring, up to $900 for a maintenance assessment, up to $300 to install an effluent filter, and yeah, $300 to $600 to install a couple of risers. And then when you relate those costs to the cost to replace the system, $15,000 or even more for a type 1 system if there's a pressure distribution attached to it, or substantially more for a type 2 or 3 system, and there are design costs to consider on top of these installation costs as well. So to maintain your system and keep it operating is definitely the better option than having to replace the system due to lack of maintenance. In regards to pump out and inspection, the frequency of this is going to depend on the size of your septic tank. It's going to depend on what goes down the toilet or the drain, and it's going to depend on the use of your home, how many people are in your home. Generally, a type 1 system should be pumped out every 3 to 5 years, and a type 2 or 3 system has to be inspected every year.
Maybe, can I make a comment on that one there?
Yeah, sure, Ian. Yeah.
I think with the type 1 system, modern type 1 systems generally should go more than 5 years between pump outs, but depending on the design, should be inspected more often than that.
Right.
So
yeah.
If it's a pressure distribution system, annual maintenance is a good plan. And even a gravity system should be checked regularly. The effluent filters often need to be cleaned in between pump outs as well.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that, Ian. Okay, in regards to records, yeah, it is important to keep your maintenance records. These should also be passed on to new homeowners after the sale of the property. Keeping good records is a way to demonstrate good maintenance of the system, and will be helpful when it's time to sell your property. And as stated earlier, copies of some records might be available at Island Health. Okay, let's talk about what to do if you're experiencing a failed system. So some of the common causes of failure, one of them is poor care and maintenance. Another is high water usage, which would be overloading the system and causing it to fail. Another cause is if your drain field pipes have been crushed or become blocked by intrusion of roots. Another potential cause is poor design or installation of your system. And lastly, it could just be that the system is quite old and potentially reaching or some components of it are reaching the end of their lifespan. Some of the signs of failure include slow and backed up drains within the house, some spongy ground within the area of the drain field. You might see some lush vegetation growth due to high level of nutrients in the ground. And another thing could be poor foul odors. So what you want to do is you want to stop, look, and smell. So some of the consequences of failure is obviously the cost to repair or replace. A failed system will reduce your property values and cause foul odors throughout your home and property. This could also result in water well pollution and create health risks and environmental damage. So yeah, it's important to remember that maintenance and monitoring will extend the life of your system and save you money over the long run. So this next slide kind of illustrates what the potential impacts could be of a failing system. You can see the water coming down from the drain field back below the groundwater, and if the groundwater in this picture is moving from right to left, if the septic system isn't operating properly, there could potentially still be pathogens within the groundwater by the time it reaches the well. So it's important to maintain septic systems to prevent health risks such as this. So if you feel that your system is failing, it's important to locate any records that you do have. You're going to want to contact an authorized person to come and have a look at your situation and offer some advice on how to fix the problem. Having your septic tank pumped out can help alleviate the problem, at least temporarily. Along with conserving water, this can reduce the amount of water heading out into the drain field and help the situation out. You may want to fence off the area if there is wastewater on the surface to help prevent people and pets from contacting the effluent. And yeah, once you do have an authorized person on site, they can put together a maintenance plan for you. Okay, we'll talk a bit more about authorized persons, continuing from what we started with at the beginning of the presentation. As said, the sewage system regulation defines who can work on your system. This regulation was enacted on May 31st of 2005, and it replaced the former sewage disposal regulation. So if your system was built before May 31st, 2005, an authorized person is required for repairs and upgrades on your system and is recommended for maintenance. If your system was built after May 31st, 2005, you require an authorized person for repairs, upgrades, and maintenance. Your system should have a maintenance plan with it, and it should have been designed, or will have been designed following the standard practice manual. To help find an authorized person, to find a registered on-site wastewater practitioner or ROPE ASTTBC has a rope finder on their webpage. You can just type into Google rope finder and this page will come up. And Engineers and Geoscientists BC also has a listing on their webpage of professionals that are authorized to work under the sewage system regulation. So in summary, you want to, it's important to know where your septic tank and drain field is. You want to ensure that your septic system is correctly sized for your home and your family and how your property is being used. Water conservation is important, as are the 3 Ps when considering what can go down the drain. And it's also important to have an authorized person perform regular maintenance on your system. If you do need more information, you can contact us at the Regional District at this engineering services at comoxvalleyrd.ca. Our website also is there, comoxvalleyrd.ca/septic with some more septic resources. If you want to contact Island Health to see if there's records available for your system, here's the contact information for the office here in Courtenay. And with that concludes the presentation. I'll put up one more poll here, final summary. Hopefully this works for everyone. Okay. Okay, great. I see one question here from Teresa.
I'm just giving that one a go here.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, thanks, Ian. Yeah, when we did have in-person discussions, there was some discussion at those about various brands of toilet paper. I can't recall the outcome of those. I seem to remember some people talking a bit about Costco toilet paper.
It seems the Costco toilet paper, some of it holds together better.
Right, yeah.
I've never tried comparing it. I haven't just, well, maybe I'll just answer this. No, I have compared bamboo toilet paper with regular.
Right, yeah.
And there was some contention the bamboo toilet paper was not breaking down normally. But after a couple of years of observing it in a glass jar, it seems to behave fairly similarly.
Yeah.
There are some toilet papers that provide long fibers, which can be problematic with certain filtration systems.
Oh, okay.
But as I was saying in my reply here, I've never seen any real comprehensive study on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, all toilet paper contains, or most toilet papers contain lignins, which are not going to break down rapidly in the septic tank. So, you know, some of the material is going to end up pumped out. So, yeah, I mean, not putting excessive amounts of toilet paper in is probably sensible, but on the other hand, you know, if your system is in good shape, it should be able to handle normal use.
Yeah, yeah.
Septic tanks are remarkably robust things, really.
Okay. Any other questions anyone has?
I see a comment on the Costco toilet paper there. Yeah, obviously, if you're designing toilet paper, you want something that is not going to fall apart when it's wet until you want it to.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's obviously a bit of a balancing act, but there's a big
Yeah.
difference between what happens to it in a couple of minutes of being damp
Yeah.
and, you know, a year sitting in a septic tank is, you know, quite a different situation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly putting things like disposable wipes and that kind of thing down the toilet is not a good plan because
Yeah. Yeah.
apart from anything else, they can plug the plumbing up and they don't, you know, they don't ever dissolve.
Yeah. 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 Even though a lot of them are labeled flushable.
Yeah, well, you might be able to flush them, but they certainly
Yeah.
aren't going to dissolve
Yeah.
very easily.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be.
Goes across the board, not just septic tanks, but, you know, community sewer as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Mhm.
Here's a question.
Uh,
Who are authorized persons? I can go back. Maybe I'll go back to the slide 3. Yeah, authorized persons are the ones that are authorized to work on a sewage system per the sewage system regulation. Another question, does green over the septic field in a really dry season mean the system is failing?
no, I would say that if the green is reasonably well distributed over the area, then it's probably an indication that the septic system is sending water to that area.
Right, yeah, yeah,
Normally, when you get a problem, you have kind of wetland vegetation in one part of the field area and the rest of it dry.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Next question. I see, is grass recommended to plant over the field? We just have whatever grows naturally.
Well, root intrusion can be a serious problem with certain types of sewage system.
Yeah.
So, you know, you will often go and inspect a system next to say a cedar hedge, for example, and, you know, it's a traditional gravity system. The pipes are completely plugged with cedar roots. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, from some types of systems, the best thing is to have grass over the top of it. There are other systems which can safely be installed amongst trees, but, you know, if it's a older system, better to keep the trees away from it.
Okay, I saw another question here. Can one use bleach in laundry? Yeah, in moderation. Small amounts aren't going to cause any issues.
It's certainly safer to use bleach than it is to use some other kinds of disinfectants. Like if people are using hospital type disinfectants like a quaternary ammonium compound, something like that, it never breaks down and continues to negatively affect the biology in the system. So bleach, on the other hand, the septic tank can recover quite rapidly, even if you do put too much in. You can also consider like peroxide bleach, like Max Oxy or something like that, possibility.
There's another question here. How many years old is considered an old septic field?
um,
That's a loaded question.
if it was very well designed and well constructed and it's been well maintained in good soils, even a simple type 1 system can last considerably more than 35 years. But generally people consider a field over 30 or 35 years to start, is beginning to get old.
It does really play into the maintenance. It depends on what kind of, like Ian mentioned, like what's your start soil conditions. If they're really good soil conditions and you take really good care of it, it can last. I've seen systems that are more than 40 years old, but I've also seen systems that have failed after 8 years because of greatly constrained site conditions. Soil conditions were poor. They didn't take care of it. They basically abused it. And it failed after 8 years. So it's sort of a combination of all those different things put together and how much of a lifespan you're going to get out of your septic field.
Yeah.
The intent of the SPM standards is to move towards septic fields that are no longer a stopgap measure, that they're actually intended to be a long-term solution. And it may be that some components need replacement after a period of time, but if properly looked after, you should be able to reuse the same dispersal area again in the future, right? We've got a question about cutting roots in the pipes in the septic bed. People certainly do this, and it can give some more life to the system. Bear in mind that the trenches that you have, or the bed that you have, if it's made out of drain rock, the pipes are useful, but they're not the critical part. It's whether the drain rock is plugged up that's going to cause, ultimate failure. But yeah, it would be best if you were going to cut roots out of the pipes to combine it with controlling where the roots are coming from. So either cutting trees or putting a root barrier in to prevent the roots from getting into the system.
Okay.
We had a question about determining the kind of system.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, type 1 is straightforward. It's a septic tank, hopefully with an effluent filter, and it may have a pump tank. It may just go to a D box. Type 2 and 3 systems have additional treatment. And often a type 3 system will have some kind of disinfection involved in it and will look considerably more complex. But there are a wide range of type 2 and 3 systems. It could be a sand filter, which would be as if you had sort of 2 septic systems, or it could be a package treatment plant like the diagram in the presentation. So if you're not sure what you have, I think it's probably a pretty good sign that it's time to get somebody out to do some maintenance. And then they can document what you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Another question here about adding an effluent filter to an old system.
Yeah, I mean, that is the first step I would always recommend. It's the cheapest thing you can do to make your system last longer. I mean, and even if the system is difficult to install the effluent filter, it's worth making the effort. Yeah, I would do it. If I had a system without an effluent filter, I would immediately install one. And yes, it should be noted on an inspection report. Pump alarms. Well, if it's a simple, we have 2 types of pump controls. One of them is a direct control by a float, where when a float rises in the tank, it has a switch inside it and it turns the pump on. It's wired to turn the pump on. And when it falls enough, as the water pumps down, the switch turns off and turns the pump off. Usually these are combined with another float switch, which is a bit further up, which is your alarm, and that's hooked up to an alarm lamp and probably a buzzer of some sort. And then you have ones that have a little control panel, which might be on a post or on the side of the house or somewhere in a mechanical room. And those have a variety of different alarms, but again, normally there's a red light and a buzzer that lets you know that there's a problem. And some effluent filters also have alarms, which is actually quite a good idea in that it lets you know that the effluent filter needs to be cleaned, and it avoids situations where the upstairs might start discharging into the downstairs of a house or a suite or what have you, if the effluent filter plugs up. Okay, so then we had a question about a 40-year-old Type 1 system. It's possible that you may be able to put a new dispersal system in the same location. Unfortunately, 40 years ago, the approach to soil evaluation was different. So it, the same place may not necessarily be the best spot. And things may have changed in the meantime. So somebody needs to go out and look at the system and look at the soils and see what can be done.
I think that's all the questions. Give it another minute or so, but just like to thank everybody for their attendance, and yeah, thanks for the great questions. If there are any other questions, feel free to send us an email. I'll put our contact info up again. And yeah, and thanks also for your answers on the poll. And yeah, I think we'll end it there. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, to Ian and Nancy for helping out. And yeah, take care, everyone. Have a good night.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.